Hey, y'all. You know the drill. If you can hear me, somebody say yes or give me a thumbs up, anything, just so that I know that you are picking up the signal. Excellent. Thank you, Max. I see a couple of y'all talking about rainwater and the thing I had said about collecting rainwater for the solstice. And you had done that. It's like, I mean, this is kind of the perfect time for that if you're in New Orleans. It has been raining nonstop all day. To be honest, it doesn't feel a lot like Christmas because it was about 70 degrees here today. I went out for a walk earlier just wearing like a t-shirt and shorts and still work up a sweat. So it doesn't feel a great deal like Christmas temperature wise, but energy wise, you can kind of feel it in the air. This is the first time I felt it in a while, and it's kind of nice. Just the energy of the season. I'm going to be a little sad when it's over. I used to get horrendously sad, like Christmas Day, about middle of the way through the day, because it's like all of this energy that is built up, with the whole Christmas spirit thing. The decorations are everywhere and people are trying to sell you stuff and just, Santa Clauses are all over the place, all this kind of stuff. And then, tomorrow at about lunchtime, it's all over and it all gets put away for another year and we forget about it. And it used to make me really sad. I think I'll be a little sad this year when it's over. Max says, same here in Texas, rain and short sleeves. The water element is definitely asserting itself. That's what it was here. Bake Nurse says she's in Oklahoma and it's the same there. Pretty warm down here. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm really starting to miss the cold. Okay, I'm not gonna ramble on a lot tonight just because I want to read. I want to start a story with y'all. I thought, well, first off, let me say thank you for spending Christmas Eve with me, at least part of the evening. I wasn't sure how many people would be traveling, how many people would be, with family and friends or at Christmas parties or, out celebrating in some way or another. So I wasn't even sure there would be many people show up tonight, but I am greatly appreciative. I thought it would be fun, just to kind of spend at least a few minutes on Christmas Eve together. Thank you, Sora C. Thank you. She says, you are family. Thank you very much. Yeah, Lauren Elizabeth says it's still a strange post-pandemic Christmas. That's a thing. Oh, what did she say? Yeah. Lauren Elizabeth said she didn't say Christmas. She said Xmas. Like it's still a strange post-pandemic Xmas. And this is a thing that a lot of people don't know. When I was a kid in church, you would hear these people sometimes say, don't say that, or don't write that, don't write Xmas or don't say Xmas, because what you're doing is Xing Christ out of Christmas, is what they would say. In actuality, what that means, the reason that came into being, the reason people say Xmas is because in like ancient Greek, the word Christ begins with the letter X. So that's where Xmas comes from. It's the first letter of the word Christ. So when you're saying Xmas, it's still saying Christmas, 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 all that sort of thing. Same thing. But it used to, I'll hear people say that sometimes, they're like, no, you shouldn't say that. You're Xing Christ out of Christmas. I'm like, it means the same thing. Thank you, Brent. Brent says, this is literally my first live. Well, thank you for being here tonight. I was going to show y'all something real quick. This is super nerdy. Maybe I'm a super nerd, but I just wanted to show y'all one of the things that I got for Christmas. I got to open it tonight on Christmas Eve. It's this first one. I opened it. I couldn't figure out what it was for a second. It says, two-time All Valley Championship, Karate Championships, All Valley Sports Arena. And I was like, what is this? And then I saw that you can open it. And when you open it, Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso. Action figures. So that was one of our Christmas things. Yes, Effie Wild says nice. It is. I liked it a lot. There's, it's one of those things. There's not a lot that I want. When like when people ask me like, what do you want for Christmas or whatever, most of the time it's like, I don't know. I don't care. There just isn't many things in the world that I want. So whenever I do get something like that I never in a million years would have thought of for myself, it's pretty amazing. Okay, so I'm going to tell you just a little bit about this book before we get started. Just give me 1 or 2 minutes to go into it. Somebody sent me this book for the first time when I was in prison, and I can't remember who, but the guy who wrote this book, it's a man named Richard Bach. An interesting story. If you've ever heard of they made a movie out of one of his other books called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And it's a very, very short book. Like when you're looking at it, it's almost all photographs of seagulls, but it's like a story it's like a metaphor of one seagull going against what the other seagulls think is possible. And it ends up accomplishing something that the rest of the seagulls say is not possible to do. Kind of like human beings, like at one point in time, they used to say that it was impossible for a human to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. They took into consideration all of this stuff like maximum lung capacity and, stride length and gravity and all these different configurations. And they put them all together and they said it is not possible for a human being to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. And then one day someone did it. After someone ran a mile for the first time, ran a mile in under 4 minutes for the first time, people saw that it was possible. And once they saw that it was possible, then other people started doing it. Now, people do it all the time. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. I can't do it. I'm not going to go outside and run a mile in less than 4 minutes. But athletes, professional athletes, who are half my age, do it all the time now. So it's like once human beings see that something is possible and they accept it, then they start being able to do it. And that's kind of like the story behind Jonathan Livingston Seagull. When he wrote that book, Richard Bach, this was a man who had almost nothing to his name whatsoever. He wrote that book. Keep in mind that this was back in the 70s whenever he wrote this thing. When he wrote that book, he had absolutely nothing. He was a hitchhiker. He was out hitchhiking on the road, carrying everything he owned in a backpack, just going from place to place. Nobody could find him. Keep in mind, this is way back before cell phones and computers and GPS tracking and any of that. It was like he had disappeared from the face of the earth. And he would call and check in like every couple of months or so, call home or call his agent or call his literary agent, call somebody just to kind of check in. And they published Jonathan Livingston Seagull. He wasn't thinking much about it. Then one day he's on the road, thinks he has like $5 to his name. He calls his agent just to check in. And his literary agent is like, where have you been? We've been doing everything we can to track you down, to find you. Have you looked at your bank account? He was like, no. When he went and looked at his bank account, he had like some ungodly amount of money, like it was in the millions. Back then, you could still write a book. And if you had a huge best-selling book, you could pretty much live off of the royalties of that one book for a long time. It's not really the case in this day and age anymore. It's a much different world. Most people don't buy books the way they did back then. But it had blown up, just become this tremendous success. And he had absolutely no idea that it had happened because he had, no contact with media of any sort. He wasn't watching TV, wasn't, seeing newspapers, nothing. He's just living on the road out of a backpack, didn't even realize he had become a millionaire. So that was what happened with Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Then he went on to write Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, which honestly I think is much, much better. It wasn't nearly as famous as Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but I think due to the richness, like I said, with Jonathan Livingston Seagull, there's not much story there. Like there's only like a few lines on each page. And he does that a little bit in here too. Let me show you, for example. Lost the feeds. Oh, Sharon says froze here too. Let me see. Oh, I'm back. Okay, I was just getting ready to ask y'all. Very good. Okay, thanks, guys. I was typing out, getting ready to ask y'all if you could see me again. Sorry about that. Have no idea what happened. I didn't even realize we had froze up. Very good. I didn't even realize it had happened. Thank God it started back up. Okay, so anyway, I'm not sure where we cut off at, what part of the story we were in, but he's flying around. He sees the guy on the ground, Donald Shimoda, a Japanese guy, who he realizes there's something about this man that is not normal. There's something different about him. This man starts teaching him, for all intents and purposes, what we would call magic. He teaches him things about like how to manifest things. He teaches him things about like why we incarnated here in the first place. Like all of the things that we cover in the philosophies of magic, they're in this book. It's done like a novel. It's a very short novel. But like you'll see, even some pages only have a few words on them. Like this one. Which one is it? This one? Like that's the extent of everything on the page. And what that is he also gives him a book. Donald Shimoda gives him a book. It's called something like the Messiah's Handbook or something like that. And essentially what you do is if you have a question or you're stumped in some way, you open the book and it gives you an answer. Like it tells you whatever it is you need to know. And I won't go into like a lot of the details of things just because I'd rather read it to you and we'll see how much y'all enjoy this, if you want to hear the whole thing or not. If you don't want to hear the whole book, I can just kind of bridge in the gaps and tell you things that happen, and then read you the pertinent, most important parts, or you can hear the whole thing if you want to hear it. It's been a long time since I read it. I started skimming through it just before I was going to read it to y'all because I wanted to remember what it was like. And to be honest, it's not as well written as I remembered it being. The story is great, but it's not as well written. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying it's a literary masterpiece, but not for the literary aspect, more for the story aspect. Oh, but anyway, the part I wanted to read to you tonight, and we'll see after this. So the first part of it is actually, it looks like handwriting on a notebook. And you can see like smudges on it, those like greasy fingerprints. What those are, the reason for that is because what this is that you're looking at is as they're going around traveling, he starts writing, not Donald Shimoda, but the Richard Bach character starts writing basically his own Bible, or the things that he learns from Donald Shimoda. He starts writing them down in metaphors and parables and stuff like that, kind of the same way that Jesus did. Yes, Effie says, I need to get a copy. You do. Yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. Absolutely. This is not a book that takes a long time to read, but there's a lot of great stuff in it. So I'm going to start reading you the part that he starts writing as his Bible. This is not the story of the two men. This is just the story that one of the men, the Richard Bach character, starts writing to kind of illustrate some of what Donald Shimoda is teaching us. And it's written like a Bible. You see, 1, 2, that's how the verses are. You can see each one's numbered. But this is the part we're going to cover tonight. There was a master come unto the earth, born in the holy land of Indiana, raised in the mystical hills east of Fort Wayne. The master learned of this world in the public schools of Indiana, and as he grew in his trade as a mechanic of automobiles. But the master had learnings from other lands and other schools, from other lives that he had lived. He remembered these, and remembering became wise and strong, so that others saw his strength and came to him for counsel. The master believed that he had power to help himself and all mankind, and as he believed, so it was for him, so that others saw his power and came to him to be healed of their troubles and their many diseases. The master believed that it is well for any man to think upon himself as a son of God, and as he believed, so it was. And the shops and garages where he worked became crowded and jammed with those who sought his learning and his touch, and the streets outside with those who longed only that the shadow of his passing might fall upon them and change their lives. It came to pass, because of the crowds, that the several foremen and shop managers bid the master leave his tools and go his way. For so tightly was he thronged that neither he nor other mechanics had room to work upon the automobiles. So it was that he went into the countryside, and people following began to call him Messiah and worker of miracles. And as they believed, it was so. If a storm passed as he spoke, not a raindrop touched a listener's head. The last of the multitude heard his words as clearly as the first. No matter lightning nor thunder in the sky about. And always he spoke to them in parables. And he said unto them, within each of us lies the power of our consent to health and to sickness, to riches and to poverty, to freedom and to slavery. It is we who control these, and not another. A millman spoke and said, easy words for you, master, for you are guided as we are not, and need not toil as we toil. A man has to work for his living in this world. The master answered and said, once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of a giant crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them all, young and old, rich and poor, good and evil, the current going its own way, knowing only its own crystal self. Each creature in its own manner clung tightly to the twigs and rocks of the river bottom, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, I am tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust that the current knows where it is going. I shall let go and let it take me where it will. Clinging, I shall die of boredom. The other creatures laughed and said, fool, let go, and that current you worship will throw you tumbled and smashed across the rocks, and you will die quicker than boredom. But the one heeded them not, and, taking a breath, did let go, and at once was tumbled and smashed by the current across the rocks. Yet in time, as the creature refused to cling again, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. And the creatures downstream, to whom he was a stranger, cried, see, a miracle, a creature like ourselves, yet he flies. See the Messiah, come to save us all. And the one carried on the current said, I am no more Messiah than you. The river delights to lift us free, if only we dare let go. Our true work is this voyage, this adventure. But they cried the more, Savior, all the while clinging to the rocks. And when they looked again, he was gone, and they were left alone, making legends of a Savior. And it came to pass, when he saw that the multitude thronged him the more, day on day, tighter and closer and fiercer than ever they had, when he saw that they pressed him to heal them without rest, and feed them always with his miracles, to learn for them and to live their lives, he went alone that day unto a hilltop apart, and there he prayed. And he said in his heart, infinite radiant is, If it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. Let me lay aside this impossible task. I cannot live the life of one other soul, yet 10,000 cry to me for life. I'm sorry I allowed it all to happen. If it be thy will, let me go back to my engines and my tools, and let me live as other men. And a voice spoke to him on the hilltop, a voice neither male nor female, loud nor soft, a voice infinitely kind. And the voice said unto him, not my will, but thine be done. For what is thy will is mine for thee. Go thy way as other men, and be thou happy on the earth. And hearing, the master was glad, and gave thanks, and came down from the hilltop, humming a little mechanic's song. And when the throng pressed him with its woes, beseeching him to heal for it, and learn for it, and feed it nonstop from his understanding, and to entertain it with his wonders, he smiled upon the multitude and said pleasantly unto them, I quit. For a moment, the multitude was stricken dumb with astonishment. And he said unto them, if a man told God that he wanted most of all to help the suffering world, no matter the price to himself, and God answered and told him what he must do, should the man then do as he is told? Of course, master, cried the many. It should be pleasure for him to suffer the tortures of hell itself, should God ask it. No matter what those tortures, nor how difficult the task. Honor to be hanged, glory to be nailed to a tree and burned, if so be that God has asked, they said. And what would you do, the master said unto the multitude, if God spoke directly to your face and said, I command that you be happy in the world as long as you live? What would you do then? And the multitude was silent. Not a voice, not a sound was heard upon the hillside, across the valleys where they stood. And the master said unto the silence, in the path of our happiness shall we find the learning for which we have chosen this lifetime. So it is that I have learned this day, and choose to leave you now to walk your own path as you please. And he went his way through the crowds and left them, and he returned to the everyday world of men and machines. One of the reasons I like that so much is, keep in mind, whenever I read this was during a time when I was very, very heavily into practicing Zen. When I had, Max says, if you Google Richard Bach Illusions PDF, you can find the ebook copy for free. So if you don't want a copy you can hold in your hands, you can get the ebook copy for free. But whenever I read this, it was during the time when I was practicing Zazen day and night with a Zen master who was traveling back and forth from Japan to teach me in prison. And I've said before that during that time, I did not feel like I got from Zen, out of years of Zen, I did not get as much as I got out of just a few months of practicing magic. And in some ways, that's very much true. But in hindsight, looking back, I realized I was getting something. I was experiencing something. But it wasn't what I thought it was supposed to be. You know, we have these grandiose ideas of what these paths are supposed to be like, what enlightenment is, all of this sort of stuff. And some of the greatest Zen masters of all time have told us things like, enlightenment is nothing special. If you're looking for something special, then you've missed the mark. Before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. Yeah, there's experiences in between you have, but those experiences are not enlightenment. Those experiences are just things you go through on your way from point A to point B. Ultimately, enlightenment is nothing special. What enlightenment is you immersing yourself 100% into the experience of this life. Not suffering and wishing for, these grandiose states where you're in bliss and, whatever ideas it is that people have where they think that whatever they think enlightenment is. As long as those are the things that we're striving for, we are still missing the mark. Just like in that Zen saying, before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. That's what this story is saying. Before enlightenment, I fixed cars. After enlightenment, I fixed cars. It's nothing special. If you're seeking a special state, then you've missed the mark. The other thing, in magic, you hear people talking all the time and about true will. What is, because it's been made such a big deal out of, what is your will? What's true will? How do I know what my true will is? And that's one of those things that nobody can tell you. Nobody can tell you what your true will is because it's something that is specific and unique entirely unto you. But one way, one clue of what your will is what do you enjoy? Find what it is that you enjoy. Maybe it's fixing cars. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's writing books. Maybe it's martial arts. Maybe it's riding bicycles. Maybe it's raising kids. Whatever it is, what is it that you love doing? Find that thing and do it. And when you do it, and you lift yourself out of misery, when you lift yourself out of suffering, because once you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you enjoy doing, you don't really suffer anymore. Not to say you won't experience hardship or you won't experience pain or any of those things, because that's part of life. We do experience those things, but you don't suffer anymore the way most people suffer. Not all of that mental anguish and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, because you are so busy doing what you love doing that it doesn't occur to you to give into that stuff. I was watching this show recently. I'm really late to TV shows. Most people have seen all the stuff that I'll watch years and years ago. I started watching this show called Mad Men. I don't know if y'all seen that or not. But for those of you that have, there's a character in the show, Don Draper. He's like the main character. And he says something to another character in the show. He says, like the character asked him something about the past, about do you ever look back or do you ever think about it, something, or, did you ever miss us when you left or whatever it was? And he says, no. He says, my life goes one way, forward. And that might sound hard or harsh, but that's the way we're supposed to live. Looking forward. Like when you find what it is you love doing, like say it is fixing cars, like the mechanic in here, and you're constantly like figuring out new things about engines and getting better at it and just completely immersing yourself into it so that you're lost in the learning process, you're not thinking about the past. You're not eaten up with anxiety or any of that kind of stuff anymore. You will be lifted out of suffering. And you will also be, in one way or another, contributing to the betterment of society. Let's say, for example, let's say that what you enjoy doing is raising kids. You have 2 kids, you have 5 kids, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that's everybody's thing. It was something, it was kind of a life I was never really interested in, that sort of thing, like a family type life. But at the same time, some people love it, But whenever they're raising these kids, you look at it and you think, how is doing that leading to the betterment of civilization or humanity in any way? Well, the answer is because if you bring those kids up in love and you're constantly teaching them, not just crap like 2 + 2 is 4, but teaching them to be a good person, to be disciplined, to be committed, to have loyalty, all of those sorts of things, they are pieces of society. They are going to improve society as a whole. When you're doing what you love, yeah, Lauren says, Katerina said the answer is always love. Somebody told me one time, he said, in the first part of our life, we gain power. When we're young and we're growing towards like our physical peak and all of that kind of stuff, like when you're in your 20s and you're at the height of your physical prowess and you look the best that you're ever going to look and all of that sort of stuff, that's the stage where you're gaining power. And then you hit a peak where you hit your physical peak, and from that point on, you're no longer going to gain power, but you can still gain knowledge. And that can go on for a while. But eventually, we're not so mentally sharp anymore. We're not so intellectually sharp. Eventually, we don't even have knowledge. Eventually, we start to lose even that. We become doddering. Not everybody, but we lose that edge until all that remains, all that we have left to give, it's not power, it's not knowledge, it's love. When you have neither power nor knowledge left, you can still give love. Just like babies and old people. That's what they give. They give love. Or theoretically, that would be the best ideal situation. So if y'all like this, I would like to pick up, Sarah W. Yep, that is 100% true. That is 100% true. So if y'all like this, I would like to read some more to you, and I won't read the whole book. We'll skip ahead like this. The book itself only has 143 pages. So I'll skip ahead whenever we start back to page 76. I'll skip past all the stuff where they're just getting to know each other and flying around and giving farmers rides around their fields and all that kind of stuff, what have you. We'll skip past that and we'll just go straight into the lessons, the important stuff. Yes, Baitner says love is supernatural. We can love dead people. Love transcends space and time. You can love someone who is nowhere physically close to you. And you can love someone who no longer even exists in a present moment, that died, that is gone. Love transcends time. Love transcends space. And a third thing, my mind went blank. Something else. Oh, the border between life and death. Love is the only thing that transcends all those things. You have within you a power that transcends life and death, time and space. It's an ability we all have. That is right, Effie. Effie says love is stronger than death. Absolutely. Okay, guys, I'm going to get off of here, let y'all go about your Christmas business. I'll be back in a couple of days. We are going to pick up at one of the higher pledge levels. You guys that are up near the top tier, we are going to be talking about something in the next couple of days that I'm excited about, meditation in motion. I'll explain more of what that means. But it's kind of where my mind and my life is focused these days. Okay. Thank you guys for spending some time with me on Christmas Eve. I hope y'all have an absolutely amazing holiday, whatever it is you're celebrating, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or the solstice or whatever it is. I hope it is a great one and that you are absolutely bathing and basking in the energy of it. Thank you, Wild Bill. All right, guys, I love y'all, and I'll talk to you in a couple days.